India's breakfast cereal market is about $5.1 billion in 2024, and it may hit $10.2 billion by 2033. When I see that, I wonder, who taught us that a cold box equals health? What did your granny use instead of a slogan? Which part was the real magic? The grains, the sour, or the timing? Keep thinking, because what? What did Indian grannies put on your plate before cities? A little more than 100 years ago, only about 11% lived in towns, and by 2011 it hit 31%, and by 2023 it reached 36%, which means 500 million plus people now live in Indian cities. That is one lifetime, and it flips daily life in a way you can feel, even if nobody ever named it. Your alarm rings, you grab your phone and you rush, but your granny wakes up to fire, water, and slow food, and that difference shows up first thing in the morning. When most people lived closer to farms and wells, breakfast came from soil, water, and time, not from a packet you tear open while half asleep. That small swap changes what your body expects, and it changes what your brain calls normal. Across the South, families steamed idli and rice puttu. Across the West, poha and upma showed up on plates. Across the North, parathas rolled out and chole simmered, and across the East, luchi, pitha, and rice gruels kept mornings steady. One country, many mornings, and every region had its own simple rule that said, "This will fill you for real work." Now, a big Indian paper picked 10 steamed breakfasts and called them healthy and filling, and it said they can help people watching their weight. That list includes idli, dokla, puttu, idiyappam, dalpitha, and bhapapitha, which means the new health idea was already sitting in old kitchens every day. So why do these dishes feel like special weekend food in so many flats? And why does a box feel like the daily answer now, even when your home once trusted steam more than slogans? When did soft idlis and hot parathas lose to toast and ads? From 2011 to 2021, ultra-processed food in India grew at about 13% a year, and sales jumped from around $0.9 billion to about $38 billion in a little over a decade. That number matters because it tells you the box did not just arrive, it rushed in, and it found you when you were tired, busy, and ready to believe anything that sounds easy. Think of the last cereal ad you saw, because those ads sell a feeling first and food second, and that is why they stick. The promise sounds clean and safe, and it sounds fast, and when you are half awake, fast feels like the only thing you can afford. That is the trick, and it works even on smart people. Soft idlis and hot parathas do not shout at you from billboards. They sit quietly with steam, and steam does not beg for attention. Yet when nutrition writers tested them, they found one idli with sambar sits around 250 to 300 calories. And it brings steady carbs with plant protein that helps many people avoid hard energy spikes. Studies that measured idli and dosa batter also show about 6 to 7 grams of protein per 100 grams, plus extra B vitamins from fermentation, and that part slips past you when you only stare at the front of a cereal box. Now step back, because the health pattern looks rough. A Lancet-linked series warned that ultra-processed foods push obesity and diabetes worldwide, and that trend is rising fast in India, and one doctor in Delhi wrote that these foods are silently driving chronic disease because cheap starch, sugar, and oil show up in forms people overeat. So the real change was not taste, it was speed, ads, and daily habit. And that sets up a sharper question: when your mornings changed, what exactly vanished from your plate that used to protect you without any label? Do you remember how each state had its own morning smell? That 10 steamed breakfasts list proves the point. The new health idea was already sitting in old kitchens. Idli, dokla, puttu, idiyappam, dalpitha, bhapapitha. Every region had a warm, steamed staple. So how did we land on the same toast across so many hotel buffets? India has 28 states and 8 union territories, over 20 major languages, and dozens of big food zones, so one single Indian breakfast never made sense. Coastal homes lean on rice, fish, coconut, and fermented batters. Dry inland areas lean on wheat, bajra, and jowar, and hill states like Himachal steam breads like siddu, which sits around 280 to 300 calories per 100 grams and is often stuffed with peas or lentils. That is a cold morning answer that tastes like the place it came from. Most people miss this part. Every old breakfast solved a local problem without drama. Heat, cold, farm work, long school walks, low money, and tired bodies all got their own breakfast fix, and the plate used what was already nearby. The quiet pattern shows up again and again: grain plus pulse, plus vegetables plus fat, and often something fermented or sour at the side. And a review on traditional Indian diets says these meals combine cereals with pulses, nuts, seeds, and low-fat dairy to give good quality protein in vegetarian meals. When those smells collapse into one standard buffet, you do not only lose taste, you lose local wisdom that once matched your day and your weather. So if one normal breakfast never fit India, what happened inside homes that made the old variety feel hard and made the new sameness feel easy? Why did they soak rice and lentils all night without fear? Inside many kitchens, rice and urad dal sat out to ferment for 8 to 12 hours, and nobody panicked, because the method was the safety plan. By morning, the batter rose a little, smelled gently sour, and turned into idli or dosa with one hot steam plate, and that daily routine looked ordinary until modern life made it look risky. Researchers who studied dosa batter found strong strains of lactobacillus bacteria that act like probiotics and support digestion, which sounds fancy, yet your granny never used that word once. Fermentation didn't just change taste, it made the batter easier on the gut and more useful nutritionally without anyone needing a label for it. A recent gut health article described fermented Indian foods like idli and dokla as packed with probiotics that feed good bacteria in the digestive system, and the funny part is that this was daily food, not some rare health trend. So why was your granny calm about leaving that pot outside the fridge, even in warm weather? She followed rules that lived in her hands: a clean pot, a clean spoon, the right water level, a warm corner, and then a proper cook in the morning so the plate came out safe and hot. That routine mattered because modern warnings point out that rushed shortcuts or very polished rice with too little dal can change how the same idli behaves in the body, and method matters as much as the dish name. Fermented batters were not alone. Bengal had rice and coconut paitha, Himachal had steamed siddu, and many hill and tribal areas had their own sour porridges, pickles, and dried greens that carried that safe sour touch. So that one steel pot was not just food prep, it was a quiet system, and it also did something practical that explains how big families ate well on small budgets. How did one iron tawa feed 6 people on a tight money day? India produces about 38% of the world's millets, and around 18 million tons grew in 2024 to 25, which shows how much these grains still matter when you look past city shelves. A government note calls millets an important part of the nation's food basket because they grow in poor soil with little water, and that single idea explains why village breakfasts stayed steady even when money stayed tight. Now picture the iron tawa, black from years of heat, sitting on one flame while many hands wait. That tawa turned whatever grain was at home into a full plate. Wheat flour became chapati or stuffed paratha. Bajra or jawar flour became rotla and bahakri. Leftover rice became lemon rice or fried rice, and old batter turned into chila or paniyaram. One pan, one plan, and the result was breakfast for a crowd without anyone feeling less. A review on traditional Indian diets explains that classic meals often used cereal plus pulse, plus vegetables, plus curd or pickle. and that mix gave good plant protein, long energy, and key minerals at low cost. And you can spot the same pattern at breakfast if you look closely. Think of 1 paratha, wheat, potato, or lentil filling, a spoon of ghee, and maybe curd on the side. And that single plate holds carbs, protein, fat, and some fiber without any barcode. City life brings a different kind of cost. A policy brief on ultra-processed food sales says per-person processed food sales almost doubled, from about $31 in 2012 to nearly $58 in 2018, and packets grew fast even when pay did not keep up for many families. So the tawa was not only cookware, it was a survival tool that tasted good. And once you see that, you start to wonder about the tiny morning habits that kept stomachs calm back then, even when modern guts complain all day. What tiny morning rules kept your granny's gut so calm? Today, about 24% of Indian women and 23% of men aged 15 to 49 are overweight or obese, and among children under 5, overweight rose from 2.1% to 3.4% between 2015 and 2021. Those numbers grew in the same years that sitting work, late dinners, and packet food spread, so it makes sense to ask what older homes did each morning that modern homes dropped without noticing. The older meal rhythm stayed simple. Breakfast came warm and on time, lunch stayed bigger, and dinner came early and smaller, and that timing helped the body feel steady across the day. Many morning plates looked plain: upma, poha, idli, paratha, or kanji. Yet they carried water, some fat, and either dal or curd, which meant the stomach got comfort first, not a dry hit of sugar. Even today's healthy breakfast lists keep circling back to the same old plates: idli sambar, poha, upma, chilla, appam, sattu paratha, because they work. 3 small rules show up again and again. Rule 1 was warm and wet first, not cold and dry, which helps the gut settle and can slow how fast sugar hits the blood. Rule 2 was real sour from the kitchen: dosa batter, curd, buttermilk, and pickles. And a gut health guide says traditional fermented Indian foods are naturally rich in probiotics that support digestion. Rule 3 was spice used with sense: ginger, cumin, mustard seed, and curry leaves. And one health article points out these spices can help digestion and reduce swelling in the body in small daily doses. Then comes a line that feels hard to believe. A 2024 Global Health piece says an average Indian household now gets more calories from processed foods than from fruit. That single detail tells you why tiny morning rules matter, because the day now starts from a different base, and that base can change what happens by lunchtime. What if those old village breakfasts were quiet medicine? A national report says more than 100 million people in India live with diabetes, and around 130 million more sit in the prediabetes zone, so breakfast stops feeling like a small choice when you stare at that scale. Another study shows diabetes incidence rose from about 163 per 100,000 in 1990 to around 265 per 100,000 in 2021, and deaths from non-communicable diseases grew from roughly 38% of all deaths in 1990 to about 62% in 2016. Those numbers feel huge, yet the daily shift can start with something as normal as what you eat at 8 a.m. While these numbers climbed, village breakfasts quietly did the opposite kind of work. A Times of India breakdown on idli sambar calls it light, low-fat, rich in fiber and plant protein, and it says fermentation improves mineral absorption and gut health, which is a clean way of saying the plate supports you before problems show up. A review on traditional Indian diets explains that mixing cereals with pulses, nuts, seeds, vegetables, and curd in regular meals help people hit good protein, fiber, and micronutrients without meat or supplements, and that matters in a country where many homes eat vegetarian most days. At a recent nutrition conference, one expert said, "There is no meal as wholesome as a good old thali because it packs chapati, dal, greens, rice, or millet, curd, and jaggery on one plate." That quote hits because it points to design, not luck, and breakfast often set the tone for that whole day of balanced eating. Your granny did not talk about long-term disease risk. Her line stayed short: "Eat this, you will stay strong in the field," and the body understood the message fast. So if old breakfasts acted like quiet medicine, what happens when packet food takes the first slot of the day and your body starts feeling heavy and wired at the same time, even when you think you ate light? If these slow dishes die, what happens to your grown-up body? A UNICEF brief says overweight in under 5 children rose 127% in a little over a decade, and a global Lancet review warns that by 2050, around 60% of adults worldwide may be overweight or obese, with India listed among the countries driving that rise. People love to say, "It is just breakfast," yet your body hears breakfast as the first signal for how the whole day will run. On the ground, the pattern often looks simple: cereal plus sugar, plus milk early, cookies later, sweet tea in the afternoon, and quick sugar again, with little fiber or protein to slow the rush. Doctors see young adults showing early signs of diabetes, and that feels scary because it means the old people problem is showing up sooner. Now, set a different morning beside that. Idli with sambar can sit at 250 to 300 calories. Poha with peanuts can land around 250 calories. And one article points to rotla with chayas and sabzi as a simple trio that can calm bloating and gut pain. These plates bring slow carbs, real protein, and real fiber together, so hunger shows up later and softer, which changes what you reach for at 11 a.m. Here's the part most people skip. When slow dishes fade out, you lose 3 supports at once: gut comfort, steadier sugar, and longer energy, and you usually notice only after you start chasing snacks to feel normal again. That is why the trade feels unfair, because the box gives speed now, and the cost shows up later. So the question turns personal fast. If your grown-up body feels tired, wired, or heavy by late morning, which missing part from the old plate created that gap, and what can you bring back without turning your life upside down? Which of Granny's plates can still fit your small city kitchen? You can mix 20 to 30% millet flour into regular wheat dough for chapatis, and that single swap fits a flat life because it changes almost nothing about your routine. Most people think the only options are full village cooking or full packet life, yet the real answer often sits in tiny changes that do not scare your schedule. You do not own a mud stove or a courtyard. You own 2 burners, 1 sink, and a clock. So the real problem is space and time, not romance. A gut health piece calls poha, upma, and millet porridge wholesome Indian breakfasts that can work for busy people when planned ahead, and that word planned matters because the box wins when your brain feels trapped in the morning. Some old combos stay shockingly simple. The rotla, chas, and sabzi plate takes 1 pan and 1 bowl, and one article says this trio can help bloating and gut pain better than many trendy probiotic drinks, and the logic stays plain: warm grain, sour drink, and cooked vegetables, and the gut relaxes. You can cook Raji porridge with milk and jaggery in 10 minutes. You can swap 1 cereal morning for 1 idli morning with ready batter and a basic idli stand, and you can keep 1 old plate day each week so your body remembers what steady feels like. A guide on traditional Indian diet says to start the day with poha, upma, or millet porridge, then build the rest of meals around the grain pulse veg idea, and that is exactly what many older homes did without writing anything down. Once one of these plates returns, something changes that no chart can measure, because smell and memory hit fast, and that leads to the last twist. What wakes up in you when the kitchen starts smelling like the past again? And when you cook one again, what else in you wakes up? One smell from sambar boiling can flip your mood in a single minute, and that is a real fact anyone with a memory can test at home. Food researchers say traditional Indian meals can carry stories, memories, and shared bonds, and that sounds like a big line until you feel your shoulders drop when the tadka sizzles. When you copy your granny's breakfast even one day, you pull back more than taste. You hear the same crackle in the pan, you notice the same warm steam on your face, and your body reads that as care, not just fuel. Most people miss how fast this works because smell goes straight to memory, and memory changes how safe you feel, and safety changes how you eat for the rest of the day. A guide on traditional Indian diet says these meals lean on plants, grains, pulses, and spices, and it adds that people who eat them more often tend to face lower risk of lifestyle diseases than people who rely on Western-style processed food. It also says traditional Indian food can act like a quiet health system, and that line feels huge until you see the tiny daily effects, like feeling full in a calmer way or skipping one mid-morning junk snack because breakfast actually held you. So when your next week begins, which morning will you give back to her plate? And what will you notice in your body before you even finish the first bite? You can feel the city pull you, and your granny's plate pull you back. Try one morning swap and watch what changes. If this hits you, tap the next video.